Oh my gosh, substance abuse, that sort of came to light.
They were once among the most celebrated black actors in Hollywood Oscar winners' Disney Channel powerhouses. They became cultural icons for an entire generation. But one mistake, one reckless comment, one explosive
making
scandal,
appearances in
and their
various
careers
television
went up in
shows.
flames.
Industry
Hollywood
insiders
turned its back.
alike.
Invitations
Both my parents
vanished.
were drug addicts.
The doors of opportunity slammed shut. All that remained were indelible stains on their reputations. Hollywood can elevate you to the very peak, but it can just as easily bury you overnight. This is the list of 20 black actors Hollywood swears it will never work with again. And the final name, the one that shattered fans' hearts the most. But first, the list begins with the biggest shock of the decade, a star once hailed as a symbol, who destroyed his own career with a staged drama that outraged America.
Jussie Smollett took advantage of the pain and anger of racism to promote his career.
Jussie Smollett, the staged attack that shocked America in 2019. On January 29, 2019, at around 2 a.m., actor and singer Jussie Smollett, star of the hit series Empire, left his apartment to buy a Subway sandwich. On his way back, he called the police in a state of distress. Smollett told officers that two white men wearing hooded masks had suddenly attacked him. He claimed they beat him while shouting the slogan, "This is MAGA country," a phrase tied to Donald Trump. Smollett also said they poured bleach on him and hurled slurs targeting both his race and sexual orientation. In that moment, Smollett, once just a television actor, suddenly became the victim of a hate crime, one of the hottest issues in America's political climate in 2019. But when Chicago police began their investigation, the layers of deception started to peel away. Officers scoured dozens of surveillance cameras around the scene, hoping to capture images of the two white attackers Smollett had described. Strangely, none matched his account. Instead, the footage revealed two tall men dressed in dark clothing and knit hats. They were not white, but Nigerian brothers Abimbola Abel Osundairo and Olabinjo Ola Osundairo. Notably, both knew Smollett. They had appeared as extras on Empire and even trained with him at the gym. On February 13, 2019, police detained the Osundairo brothers at O'Hare Airport upon their return from Nigeria. After hours of questioning, the truth slowly emerged. The brothers were not attackers at all, but actors, in a scheme orchestrated by Smollett himself. Smollett had paid them $3,500 by check, with a promise of an additional $500 once the job was done. He handed them a detailed script, throw a few punches to make it look real, and shout the line, "This is MAGA country." Everything from timing and location to the very words spoken had been carefully scripted by Smollett. A perfect reversal. The supposed victim was actually the director of the entire drama. So what was his true motive? Investigators found that Smollett had not devised the scheme on a whim. He was frustrated with his salary on Empire and felt underappreciated. A hate crime attack would transform him into a symbol, earn public sympathy, and give him leverage to demand higher pay while elevating his status in Hollywood. Chicago Police Superintendent Eddie Johnson later angrily declared to the press, Smollett exploited the pain and anger of racism to promote his career. This is a stain on the city of Chicago. And so, within just days, Jussie Smollett fell from being hailed as a hero across America to being branded a betrayer of the public's trust. In December 2021, after several tense days in court, Smollett was convicted on 5 felony counts of lying to police. He was sentenced to 150 days in jail, 30 months of probation, and ordered to pay $120,000 in restitution. Yet he served only 6 days before being released pending appeal. In 2024, the Illinois Supreme Court overturned the conviction on procedural grounds, but did not declare Smollett innocent. At his peak, Smollett had been a familiar face on red carpets, a regular guest on major talk shows, and seen as one of Fox's rising stars. But while the doors of the law temporarily closed, the doors of his career were all but locked. He was written out of Empire, his character, Jamal Lyon, killed off. No major studio dared to approach him. His attempts to return directing the independent film B-Boy Blues and taking on a few small roles were little more than isolated efforts in the dark. Now he exists only as a faint shadow, remembered more for scandal than for the artistic achievements he once had. What a pity. If Jussie Smollett's staged attack outraged the public for betraying their trust, then the next actor's case reveals another dark side of Hollywood power glamour and inevitable ruin. Cuba Gooding Jr., from Oscar glory to scandal and decline.
A little bit of time, so I'm going to rush and say everybody, and you cut them.
Cuba Gooding Jr. was on top of Hollywood.
James L. Brooks, I love you! Everybody who's involved with this, I love you!
That moment went down in history, turning Cuba into a new icon of American cinema. He had it all: talent, opportunity, and the admiration of the public. People believed he would be the black star to follow in the footsteps of Denzel Washington. But the glory was short-lived. Cuba's career quickly declined with a series of failed films. And worse was yet to come: the storm of scandal. The 2019 shock, when all secrets were exposed. In June 2019, Cuba Gooding Jr. was arrested in Manhattan after a woman accused him of inappropriate conduct in a bar. At first, many thought this was just a misunderstanding. But then more accusations kept coming. More than 20 women came forward. Some described scenes of Cuba in nightclubs. Some said he behaved inappropriately without their consent. Others claimed his actions took place openly in crowded places. All of Hollywood was stunned. The press called it a mini Harvey Weinstein. When Cuba was escorted to court, the media swarmed him, cameras flashing nonstop. From a once celebrated actor, Cuba had become a defendant in the courtroom, his face splashed across the front pages of tabloids. In 2020, he was formally charged. In 2022, after negotiations, Cuba pleaded guilty to reduced charges to avoid a long prison sentence. He was required to undergo behavioral counseling. His criminal record became the final blow to the image of a once clean star. The moment he bowed his head and admitted guilt, the press called it the death of a golden statue. Cuba Gooding Jr. became a name no one wanted to work with. Studios cut contracts. Former co-stars remained silent. The public no longer applauded. In 2024, Cuba attempted a comeback with a few small roles and independent projects. In a brief interview, he said, "I want to be remembered for my talent, not for scandal." But the public has not forgiven him. Hollywood still turns its back. The Oscar glory of the past has been forever swallowed by darkness. If Cuba Gooding Jr. fell into the abyss, with more than 20 accusations that shocked Hollywood, then the next actor's story reveals another tragedy: the slow destruction caused by addiction. Orlando Brown, from Disney stardom to a life lost in addiction. There was a time when the name Orlando Brown was tied to the childhood of millions. He once shone on Disney Channel bringing laughter in That's So Raven, and was seen as the golden boy of the 2000s generation. But that glory did not last. After leaving the set, Orlando Brown quickly fell into temptation. Alcohol, drugs, and parties dragged him away from art. From a television star, Brown became an addict, gradually losing his career. In 2007, he was arrested for the first time for drug possession. Since then, his name has constantly appeared in the news, but no longer in artistic projects. His legal record grew thicker with charges of drug possession, assaulting a girlfriend, theft, and burglary. The deeper he sank, the more he shocked the public with bizarre statements. In many interviews and live streams, he spoke incoherently, even once claiming to have had a relationship with rapper Bow Wow, a statement that set the media ablaze. Hallucinations, erratic behavior, and a worn-out appearance left audiences stunned once the Disney Golden Boy Brown now looked like a drifter ruined by drugs. Family and friends tried many times to save him. In 2018, Orlando Brown appeared on Dr. Phil, where he admitted to heavy addiction and needing help. He was sent to rehab, but shortly after relapsed, returning again to the cycle of addiction and the law. Each time he appeared in court, Brown promised to change, but reality proved otherwise. His acting career froze. His music found no audience, and his public image worsened. If Hollywood's spotlight once lifted Orlando Brown to the top, it was the audience who dragged him down to the bottom. Once trust was lost, the backlash became merciless. Fans who once saw him as their childhood were left only with disappointment and contempt. Brown became a laughingstock in the eyes of the public. Every arrest sparked memes and ridicule on social media. To Hollywood, he was a black mark that no studio dared to risk. The tragedy of a Disney generation, Orlando Brown, was not the only case. Hollywood had witnessed many Disney stars fall fame too young, no guidance, surrounded by temptation. But with Brown, the downfall was complete. After Orlando Brown's bitter collapse, Hollywood soon saw another tragedy. A talented actor, once an Oscar nominee who stood at the top with Iron Man, now forever linked with violence lawsuits and scandal. Terrence Howard, from Iron Man star to Hollywood outcast. Terrence Howard was once seen as one of Hollywood's most promising black actors. With his handsome looks and powerful performances, he quickly won over audiences with unforgettable roles, including an Oscar nomination for Hustle and Flow 2005. Not stopping there. Howard stepped into the Marvel Cinematic Universe playing Colonel James Rhodes in Iron Man 2008. At that moment, the path to the peak of his career seemed wide open. But for Terrence Howard, that path turned dark after just a few years. In 2001, Howard was accused of assaulting his ex-wife, arrested for disorderly conduct and threats of violence. In 2013, the incident in Costa Rica with ex-wife Michelle Gent shocked the public. She accused Howard of violence. Photos of her bruises were presented in court, sparking outrage. In 2015, in an interview with Rolling Stone, Howard admitted, "She said some really mean things and I lost control in front of the kids." This was no longer a rumor, but confession. And in Hollywood, where image matters as much as talent, that was a fatal blow. In the years that followed, Howard's name was tied more to courtrooms than film sets. His divorce with Michelle Gent turned into a bitter battle. Howard claimed he was extorted and forced to sign an unfair settlement under the threat of intimate photos being released. He called it blood money. But to the public, he was simply the loser in both life and law. If domestic violence scandals had destroyed his reputation, then tax evasion finally crushed the image of the wealthy, successful star. In 2019, the IRS launched an investigation into Howard and a company under ex-wife Mira Pack's name, suspecting them of using it as a front for tax evasion. In February 2024, a federal judge ordered Terrence Howard to pay nearly $1 million in back taxes and penalties spanning from 2010 to 2019. A star who once earned tens of millions was now a tax debtor publicly called out by the government. For Hollywood, this was the final nail in the coffin. No studio would risk giving leading roles to a man branded for violence lawsuits and tax debts. Marvel coldly replaced him with Don Cheadle. That was the first fall signaling the dark days to come. Howard continued appearing on TV in Empire, but outside
earned
of it,
him
Hollywood
the
had
most
slammed
acclaim of
every
his
door
career.
shut. Terrence
Hence the
Howard did not
TV
lose his
series,
career for lack
The
of
Best
talent.
Man.
He lost
The
everything
material
because
that
of
he
his own
knows
choices.
is best. I
If
guess the
Terrence
lesson
Howard was a
here,
tragedy of
ladies
violence
and gentlemen,
death,
is
then this actor fell into another tragedy, the tragedy of daring to speak out against Hollywood's power machine. Monique, from Oscar glory to system challenger. In 2010, Monique stepped onto the Oscar stage to accept the statuette for Best Supporting Actress for her role as Mary in Precious 2009. Her chilling portrayal of a cruel mother shook Hollywood to its core. In the eyes of audiences, it was a turning point that elevated Monique from a black comedian to an A-list star who could dominate Hollywood in the coming decade. But before she could fully enjoy the spotlight, Monique began to speak out. She refused to participate in overseas promotion campaigns. For Precious demanded by Lionsgate Oprah Winfrey and director Lee Daniels. Her reason: they weren't paying me extra. I couldn't sacrifice time with my family to work for free. That one decision angered the power players. Monique was branded unprofessional, difficult to work with. And when she publicly accused Oprah, Tyler Perry, and Lee Daniels of conspiring to punish her, Hollywood's cold shoulder only deepened. The Netflix scandal, the last straw. In 2017, Netflix offered Monique $500,000 for a comedy special. But Monique called it an insulting number, pointing out that at the same time, Dave Chappelle had received $60 million, Chris Rock $40 million, and Amy Schumer renegotiated up to $13 million. Monique refused to stay silent. She urged the community to call out Netflix for discrimination in pay based on gender and race. Yet instead of Hollywood support, Monique was further isolated. Producers and studios kept their distance, labeling her a system challenger. The pain-named Oscar. The golden statue that once symbolized success now became a shackle for Monique. Within the industry, whispers spread. She has an Oscar, but she'll never be invited again. An actress who once had talent, fame, and recognition became a thorn in Hollywood's side simply because she dared to speak up. Monique's greatest tragedy was that her honesty turned her from Oscar queen into a blacklisted figure in Hollywood. Another actor also paid a heavy price for being too outspoken. Isaiah Washington, the high price of a single word. In the mid-2000s, Grey's Anatomy was a television juggernaut dominating screens with tens of millions of viewers each week. Isaiah Washington playing Dr. Preston Burke quickly became a cornerstone of the series. His future looked paved in red carpet movie roles. Ad contracts, money, and fame were all within reach. But one word changed everything. In 2006, during a heated backstage argument with co-star Patrick Dempsey, Washington blurted out the slur "fa" while referring to T.R. Knight, a fellow cast member. Once leaked, the news exploded into a storm of controversy. Washington was accused of disrespecting gay people at a time when Hollywood was working hard to promote an LGBTQ+ friendly image. The stain grew worse just months later at the 2007 Golden Globes, when Washington before the press repeated the same slur while denying the accusations. It was as if he had poured fuel on the fire. Media firestorm and career collapse. The backlash was instant and overwhelming. LGBTQ rights organizations condemned him, calling for a boycott. Headlines raged, turning Washington into a symbol of disrespect. Although he later issued a public apology video and underwent anger management with GLAAD, it was too late. ABC did not hesitate. Isaiah Washington was fired from Grey's Anatomy right after season 3, even though Dr. Burke was a pivotal character. In Hollywood, once branded homophobic, the big doors were permanently closed. Washington struggled to return. He appeared in a few indie projects later in the series, The 100, but the spotlight never returned. Audiences remembered him not for his talent, but for the one word that destroyed his career. If Isaiah Washington lost his career over a single word, the next actor pushed himself into the abyss through a life of debauchery. Gary Dourdan, the CSI heartthrob and the spiral of addiction. In the early 2000s, CSI Crime Scene Investigation was one of the world's most popular series. Among the cast, Gary Dourdan as Detective Warwick Brown stood out as a true heartthrob. To millions of viewers, Warwick Brown was not just a character, but an ideal male figure on television. He walked the red carpet with co-stars graced magazine covers and became the dream man of countless fans. But behind the perfection lay cracks no one imagined: the darkness of drugs. In 2008, the tragedy erupted when police arrested Dourdan in Palm Springs, California for cocaine possession. The image of the TV heartthrob in handcuffs, head bowed, before cameras stunned fans. It wasn't the only time. Dourdan was repeatedly reported for violence and erratic behavior. From then on, the press no longer called him a CSI star, but an addict destroying his own career. Bankruptcy and bitter collapse. The lowest point came in 2012, when Dourdan officially filed for bankruptcy. In court documents, he admitted he had only about $20,000 in cash and assets, while his debt exceeded $1.7 million. A shocking number for a star who once earned millions per season. Fame vanished, money dried up. His role in CSI was written off. Gary Dourdan went from the dream man of millions to a living example of the devastating price of addiction. And Hollywood, as ruthless as ever, turned its back without a glance. The next name may surprise you. An actress chose to leave Hollywood to step into the political arena. But instead of gaining recognition, she became a thorn that made Hollywood turn its back. Stacey Dash, from Diane in Clueless to a controversial Fox News figure. In 1995, Stacey Dash made a strong impression as Diane Davenport in the teen classic Clueless. With her stylish fashion sense and her sassy yet charming personality, Diane became a role model for millions of young girls. Dash quickly rose as a 1990s pop culture icon, opening big doors in Hollywood. Stacey Dash had all the ingredients to become a long-lasting face in the industry. But then her acting career began to stall. The turning point came in 2014 when she joined Fox News as a political commentator. What shocked audiences was Dash's openly conservative stance supporting the Republican Party, while fiercely criticizing the policies of Barack Obama, America's first black president. In the eyes of many, this was nothing short of betrayal. Dash repeatedly became the center of outrage for her shocking remarks. In 2015, she said on Fox that Bet Black Entertainment Television and Black History Month should be abolished because they only create division. In 2016, she called for ending Planned Parenthood, an organization widely supported by women of color. She repeatedly expressed open support for Donald Trump, shattering her former image as a beloved teen star. Each time she appeared on air, Dash ignited waves of anger from artists' audiences, and especially black fans. Hollywood turns its back. Once branded as the conservative face of Fox News, Dash was virtually blacklisted by Hollywood. Roles disappeared, invitations dried up. In 2017, Fox News itself chose not to renew her contract, leaving her with no place in television either. She tried to re-enter politics, even filing to run for U.S. Congress in California in 2018 as a Republican candidate. But her political career collapsed quickly. She withdrew just a month later, citing threats to her family's safety, admitting she was not cut out for the brutal political arena. The glory of Clueless was now just a memory. Stacey Dash became living proof of a harsh truth. Sometimes it isn't drugs or violence that ruin your career. Political views alone can make you an outcast in Hollywood's glittering world. Wesley Snipes, from Vampire Hunter to Prisoner for tax evasion. In the 1990s, Wesley Snipes was one of Hollywood's brightest stars. With his muscular physique, martial arts skills, and steely charisma, he became one of the few black action icons on the big screen. The Blade trilogy, 1998-2004, grossed hundreds of millions of dollars and paved the way for the modern superhero era. Hollywood once saw Snipes as its trump card to rival action stars like Bruce Willis, Keanu Reeves, and Will Smith. But behind the camera, Snipes earned a reputation as difficult to work with. Crew members recalled that during the filming of Blade Trinity 2004, he rarely spoke to anyone, sometimes communicating only through sticky notes. Rumors swirled that Snipes had a hot temper and unreasonable demands, creating a tense atmosphere on set. His action hero image began to crack, and the true downfall came from something seemingly unrelated: taxes. In 2008, Snipes was convicted of federal tax evasion over several years, involving tens of millions of dollars. Though he argued he had been misadvised, the court still sentenced him to 3 years in prison. The once dominant action star now wore a prison uniform, a devastating image. In 2013, Snipes was released. He tried a comeback with The Expendables 3 2014, but the old glory was gone. Hollywood only saw him as a man who had been to prison, hard to work with, and big opportunities were gone for good. If Wesley Snipes collapsed because of prison and a reputation for being difficult to work with, then the familiar face of the hit sitcom Blackish was dragged into a whirlpool of scandal over sensitive accusations. Anthony Anderson, from Blackish star to off-screen controversies. Anthony Anderson won audiences' hearts as Andre Dre Johnson in Blackish 2014-2022. The series not only delivered laughs, but also earned praise for authentically portraying African-American family life. Anderson became television's golden face, receiving multiple Emmy and Golden Globe nominations. But in 2004, Anderson was accused of inappropriate conduct with a woman on a Memphis set. Though the case was dismissed for insufficient evidence, his name was already stained. In 2018, another accusation emerged. A woman alleged Anderson had taken advantage of her during a work meeting. The Los Angeles police launched an investigation, but again, prosecutors found insufficient evidence to file charges. Endless controversy. Although Anderson escaped formal charges multiple times, the allegations kept public debate alive. Many believed he was innocent, but just as many labeled him a man who escaped justice thanks to fame. Each time his name was mentioned, it was tied not only to talent, but also to sexual assault investigation. A divided Hollywood, Anderson continued his career appearing in multiple projects, but his image was no longer clean. In Hollywood, sometimes being investigated even without conviction is enough to brand a career with the word controversy. While many actors sank in scandals, the next star turned himself into a public laughingstock, with dramas so outrageous that even Hollywood grew tired of them. Tyrese Gibson, the Fast and Furious star and the dramas that made Hollywood weary. Tyrese started out as an R&B singer, then moved into acting and quickly rose to fame through the Fast and Furious franchise. As the hot-headed yet loyal Roman Pierce, Tyrese became an indispensable part of the Fast family. He also appeared in the blockbuster Transformers, cementing himself as a globally recognized face. But instead of preserving his image as an action star, Tyrese repeatedly turned his private life into a stage. The custody battle. In 2017, Tyrese was accused by his ex-wife of abusing their daughter. He broke down in front of the camera, crying on a Facebook livestream with the viral line, "What more do you want from me?" The video instantly became a meme, turning him into a laughingstock across the internet. And countless other dramas. Feud with Dwayne. The Rock Johnson Tyrese publicly criticized his co-star for agreeing to do the spin-off Hobbs & Shaw, claiming it caused Fast 9 to be delayed. The incident divided fans and damaged Tyrese's image further. Financial lawsuits. He repeatedly admitted publicly to money troubles selling homes, borrowing money, prompting people to ask, how could a Fast and Furious star be this broke? In the eyes of studios, Tyrese became a PR liability. No one wanted to invest millions in a star who every few months cried on live streams and overshared personal drama. Outside of Fast and Furious film roles were almost non-existent. Tyrese was typecast as a loud clown, rather than taken seriously as an actor. A star once expected to follow in Will Smith's footsteps in action films ended up as a cautionary tale. Hollywood has no tolerance for those who turn themselves into a public spectacle. If Tyrese Gibson ruined his own career with tears and lawsuits, then the next name faced a more subtle tragedy, the tragedy of choice and of rejecting the mold. Larenz Tate, a talent Hollywood boxed in. In 1997, Love Jones premiered and instantly became a classic black romance film. Larenz Tate as poet Darius Lovehall captivated audiences with his warm smile and nuanced performance. He became Hollywood's dream lover, expected to rise to A-list stardom. But when the doors opened, Tate discovered a harsh truth. The roles Hollywood offered black actors at that time were stereotyped and limited. They were often boxed into playing gangsters' comic sidekicks or shallow supporting characters. Larenz Tate refused. He didn't want to become another token black face used only to decorate white-centered stories. Instead of going with the flow, Tate chose his own path. Fewer films, but preserving his artistic integrity. The cost of his choice. That refusal made Hollywood quietly turn away. Tate's name gradually faded, no longer headlining major films. He shifted to television, appearing in series such as Power South Central and more recently, Power Book 2 Ghost. Although he retained respect among black audiences, Tate never regained the chance to stand at the peak like he did when Love Jones was a sensation. He became a textbook example of Hollywood's ruthlessness. If you don't play by their rules, they will simply take you off the board. Next, we come to a younger face. Once expected to become Hollywood's new black queen, but who too would encounter the industry's quiet, cold shoulder? Keke Palmer, the child star, who spoke out against colorism and Hollywood's harsh reality. Do you remember the poor little girl in Aquila? And the B-2006 Keke Palmer rose to fame very early. Later, she became a familiar face on Nickelodeon with the series True Jackson VP and appeared in numerous films. Palmer was praised as the next generation to follow in the footsteps of black icons like Queen Latifah and Whitney Houston. But instead of taking the safe path, Palmer boldly exposed the injustices she faced. She openly spoke about colorism, the bias even within the black community, where those with lighter skin were often favored. Palmer once shared, "I was always compared and boxed in. They said I was too dark-skinned to play a romantic lead, but too prominent to only be the funny sidekick." She also frequently criticized how Hollywood used black actors as decoration, rather than giving them leading roles with real depth. Hollywood's cold shoulder. That frankness meant Palmer rarely landed roles in major blockbusters. Many in the industry quietly labeled her difficult to work with because she spoke out. Although she appeared in standout films, Hustlers, 2019, Nope, 2022 by Jordan Peele. Palmer was never pushed up to A-list stardom like her white peers of the same generation. Not waiting for Hollywood's approval, Palmer chose to pave her own way. She became one of the rare black stars who sings acts and hosts. With her own talk show, Just Keke comedy shows, and TV projects, Palmer proved, "If Hollywood won't give me a stage, I'll build one myself." If Keke Palmer chose to confront injustice and carve her own path, then this actor became proof of a more familiar tragedy being forever trapped by the very role that made his name. Darius McCrary, Eddie Winslow, and the Shadow of the Past. In the 1990s, Family Matters was one of America's most popular sitcoms. Darius McCrary, as Eddie Winslow, the eldest son in the family, became a familiar face in millions of households. Eddie was the friendly funny boy next door that audiences loved for nearly a decade. But when the sitcom ended in 1998, McCrary discovered a harsh truth. Hollywood only saw him as Eddie Winslow, typecast and shut out. McCrary tried to land new roles, but most producers believed he could never escape his old image. Every audition circled back to the same question: aren't you Eddie Winslow? And that answer became the trap that killed his career. On top of being typecast, McCrary ran into a string of personal troubles. He was sued multiple times for failing to pay child support, accused of domestic violence, and often made headlines for financial scandals. When his name appeared more in court records than on screen credits, Hollywood had even more reason to turn its back. Darius McCrary became a forgotten star. Today, Darius McCrary occasionally appears in small projects, but the glory of Family Matters is long gone. He became a clear example of Hollywood's dark side. Sometimes the very role that takes you to the top becomes the shadow that buries you for life. If Darius McCrary was trapped by typecasting, then the tragedy of the next actor was even crueler. Jaleel White, the Steve Urkel legend, and the curse of a character. Do you remember the legendary nerd, Urkel? Jaleel White didn't just become famous. He became an American cultural phenomenon, thanks to his role as Steve Urkel in Family Matters 1989-1998. Urkel, the nerd with suspenders, a nasal voice, and the catchphrase, "Did I do?" that was originally meant to be a side character. But audiences went crazy for his goofy charm, and Urkel quickly took over the entire show, transforming White from a young actor into a nationwide star, forever etched into the childhoods of millions of Americans. But that very success became a trap. When Family Matters ended, Hollywood no longer saw Jaleel White as a versatile actor, only as the clumsy Urkel. He once bitterly admitted, "I paid the price for being too successful with Urkel. Every role I took was compared to him and ultimately dismissed." White tried to escape the shadow, taking on independent films, new sitcoms, even voice acting. But Hollywood was ruthless. No one dared give him a serious leading role, afraid audiences would just laugh and see. Urkel. Jaleel White became the perfect example of fame's paradox. A legendary role can make you immortal in pop culture, but it can also be a prison that locks away the rest of your career. Another child star shows the same paradox of Hollywood. Marcus T. Polk, the Moshe Kid star, and the pain of growing up. In Moshe, 1996-2001, Marcus T. Polk played Miles Mitchell, the mischievous, lovable younger brother of Brandy's character. With his smart looks and natural charm, Polk quickly became one of the brightest child stars of the 1990s. Audiences across America believed he would grow up to be a true leading man. But Hollywood was harsher than anyone expected. When Moshe ended, Polk stepped into adulthood and his career began to decline. The fun little brother roles no longer fit, but Hollywood wasn't ready to give him serious adult roles either. Polk was stuck between two worlds, no longer a child star, but not yet an adult star. Outside the screen, his personal life spiraled. Polk was arrested for assaulting a girlfriend, got into fights, and was accused of causing a serious car accident while driving. From a beloved face of American childhood, Polk became a name that showed up more in police records than in film credits. Today, he occasionally appears in small projects, but the childhood glory has completely vanished. Marcus T. Polk is a textbook case of the child star curse. Hollywood raises you quickly, but when you grow up, it coldly turns its back. If Marcus T. Polk faded quietly, then Brandy Norwood, the star of Moshe herself, faced a much bigger tragedy, from global cultural icon to a baffling disappearance. Brandy Norwood, a cultural icon and a strange disappearance. By the late 1990s, Brandy was not only an actress, but also a music superstar. Her album Never Say, Never 1998 sold more than 16 million copies, making her one of the most successful R&B singers in history. On television, Moesha made Brandy a household name in America. She even made history in 1997 by becoming the first Black Cinderella on screen acting alongside Whitney Houston. But in 2006, Brandy's career took a dark turn when she was involved in a car accident that resulted in a fatality. Although she was declared not guilty of a crime, the scandal destroyed her public image. Record labels turned their backs. Hollywood distanced itself. From a Black teen icon, Brandy nearly disappeared from the entertainment radar for almost a decade. It wasn't until the 2010s that Brandy slowly began a comeback, appearing on Broadway in Chicago, returning to television, and more recently starring in Disney's blockbuster Descendants: The Rise of Red 2024. On the music front, she also released new tracks proving she still had the same energy. Brandy's story is a stark reminder of Hollywood's cruelty. A single personal incident can sink an entire glittering career. But it also shows that true stars can still find their way back to the light, even if belatedly. The next name, however, illustrates another ruthless truth of Hollywood age and gender limits. Tisha Campbell, the sitcom queen. Silenced by time. In the 1990s, Tisha Campbell was television's golden girl. With Martin 1992, 1997, and later My Wife and Kids. 2001, 2005, she won audiences over with her radiant energy and charm. At that time, Campbell was crowned the sitcom queen, embodying the modern Black woman, intelligent, funny, and alluring. But time marched on. By middle age, Campbell faced a bitter truth: Hollywood rarely gives leading roles to Black women over 40. The industry craved fresh, youthful faces, while the roles available for older women were scarce, mostly confined to mothers, aunts, or supporting characters. From a sought-after star, Campbell gradually faded from the mainstream. In recent years, she has only appeared in supporting parts or smaller sitcoms, no longer considered a leading face. The queen of an era was now just a name past its prime. And the next name truly surprised and exploded back onto the scene. Cheryl Lee Ralph, from forgotten to a miraculous comeback. Among the sitcom stars of the 1990s, Cheryl Lee Ralph is one of the rare cases of a spectacular rebound. Famous since the 1980s with Dreamgirls on Broadway, and later in Moshe Ralph, then spent years being ignored by Hollywood. Despite her talent, she was trapped by industry prejudice. Older Black women were rarely given central roles. Ralph accepted small parts, independent projects, living under the shadow of being seen as wasted talent. But in 2021, Ralph stunned audiences with her role in Abbott Elementary. As Barbara Howard, the stern yet loving teacher, she breathed life into a character that made audiences laugh and cry. The role earned her the Emmy Award for Outstanding Supporting Actress in 2022, making her one of the most inspiring comeback stories in modern Hollywood. From being forgotten for decades, Ralph is now celebrated as a symbol of perseverance and resilience. She proved that no matter how cold Hollywood may be, true talent can never be completely extinguished. Have you ever been a fan of any of these actors? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you won't miss the next exciting video.
All data, analysis, and commentary in this video are presented based on information available at the time of production. The content is subject to change over time and should not be considered a definitive forecast. There is still so much more to explore. Stories of resilience, legacy, and truth. Feel free to dive into some of our top recommended videos now appearing on your screen.